Welcome to Brraap Life Episode 2. I'm Angel, and this episode is with my friend Garrett. Garrett and I met about 4 years ago in Minnesota. He currently races hare scrambles in Minnesota. He's a B class rider in District 23. So I thought it would be fun to just talk to him and get his perspective on all things dirt bike and nutrition and fitness. These are things that he's very into. We have a lot of conversations about it offline, so I figured I would pull him into the podcasting world and make him talk to me. So thank you, Garrett, for this interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Maybe it'll work.
There we go.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome. So this is
Thank
your first podcast, right?
It is. I've always watched, or I should say, listened to podcasts, but I've never been on one, so this is a new experience for me.
Cool. Well, thank you for trusting me with this. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of
Feel
course.
feel
No,
like a
I'm
celebrity.
I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, so it's really cool.
No, I'm just a
Um,
person.
yeah. Well, I mean, I am too, so it's just, two people talking. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so I just kind of wanted to let you tell your story. Kind of how did you get started riding? Like, what did you start on? Like, what kind of bike? Like, how far back does this all go? Because I've known you for about 4 years now,
Yeah.
and you've been on a bike the whole time I've known you, but like, I don't know how far back you go. So go for it.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my dad had a Honda XL 250S. It's a 1980s bike. But I remember being a kid, like I was just infatuated with it. Like my dad would be ripping wheelies up and down the street, like kind of doing what I do now, and I want to be like him. And it just my mom said I just always wanted to touch the bike. Like when I get out of the car, I go right to the bike. I wanted to touch the bike all the time. So when I turned
Right.
6, they got me a TTR 90. It's just a little, like, kind of a little bit smaller than a 110 would be, but um,
Mhm.
I that was my first technical bike, I guess, and I just rode it and rode it and rode it. And my mom said I get off the bus and I go right to my bike, wait for my dad to get home, and he would just fill it up with gas over and over and over again. And I had a little track in my pasture, my parents' house, and that's just kind of where my love came from, is just riding, watching my dad. And I don't know, I just kind of built from there because I always wanted to be like my dad, want to be, big, tough, fast guy on a bike. And of course, he always watched, like, a motocross, like the outdoor series, supercross, stuff like that, with like Jeff Stanton and, those guys way back in the 80s. And I didn't know much about it. I didn't know what I was watching, but I knew that it was dirt bikes and I thought it was cool. So, I just kind of grew from there. So that's where it started.
So, for the people watching, kind of what discipline are you in?
So I actually, when I was a kid, only strictly did track racing, and then I
Oh,
got
really?
really hurt at a local track, and I took a little bit of a hiatus from about 2012 to about 2015. I had a bad back injury and a bad head injury. Most people would, jump back on their bike, kind of do whatever after the healing process, but something in my head just kind of flipped, and it's like, I don't really need to be doing this. Like, yeah, it's fun, but at that point in time, I didn't really have the skills and, the fitness and stuff that I do now to do what I do now.
Mhm.
But I just kind of deemed it not really something that would be good for me to do.
Mhm.
But then I ended up getting back into bikes when I went to the Spring Creek Nationals in 2015. With some buddies, they had me drive their pit bikes around. And I was like, all right, I got to get another bike again. But after that, I kind of decided I still didn't really want to do track. So I ended up getting into hare scrambles, which is like, riding through the woods, racing through the woods, I should say.
Yeah.
I kind of fell in love with that just because the community is like, can't talk right now, amazing. But everybody is just super humble, very friendly
Mhm.
with each other. Um, Hell, I even have people, from my competitors' families pit for me when my parents can't make it to my races. So it's like everybody helps everybody out, and I don't know, I just really love the community. So that's what I do now.
Yeah. I think the off-road community has been super awesome since I started kind of being part of that world, I've realized that like it's very different from like motocross and supercross, which I didn't have a ton of experience with before. But it definitely is different. The community is way different. Being at the hard enduro the last couple months, I've been to two of them, and it's like you said, it's like competitors' families are there and they're like cheering everybody on, and it's
Yep.
kind of cool because you don't really see that in any other like sports. So
Yep.
I think that's
Yeah.
really awesome.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. I mean, motocross as a whole is kind of a big family sport. I think that's what a lot of people, don't get to see about our sport. They get to see it on TV. They get to see the, flashy outfits and the gear and, whatnot, but they don't get to see the story behind, the riders, the family, the hours, that it takes to get to that level. And I feel like it's a
Yeah.
very misunderstood sport, but once you're like in the world, it's like you don't want to do anything else. You just get so wrapped up in it. You just want to be better and, hang around your friends. And I don't know. That's kind of what I'm drawn to.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, are you racing this coming weekend?
Yep, Nevis. So it's actually round three of the D23 series, but it's
Nice.
also a part of the Border Battle series. So they're kind of like
Mhm.
together. So there'll be like, I think there's North Dakota there, Wisconsin,
Yeah.
Iowa, obviously Minnesota too. So hoping to do good up there. That track's always treated me pretty good. It's pretty gnarly up there, but we'll see what we can get done.
What's your favorite out of all the races that you do? Like, because I know you've been doing this for a couple years. So, which one is your favorite, do you think?
Um, that's a tough question. I really like Millville. Obviously a little bit biased because that's my home track. Um, but if I had to choose a track other than Millville, I would say probably coincidentally Nevis. It's
Okay.
really fast. It's really, I shouldn't say wide open, but it's flowy. It's got a lot of technicality to it, but it's also fast enough where, you can kind of throw in some line selection to be strategic about, when you're racing, who you're racing, who's in front of you, who's behind you type of stuff, kind of play a little bit of mind games.
Yeah.
But round one, actually, Appleton this year, I had heard a lot of people talking about bad round, like there's going to be a lot of like rocks and because it's an OHV park, so it's built for trucks, four wheelers, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a good round. And holy crap, like it was so much fun. It's wide open at some points, and there was one section right before you get back to the checkpoint, but it was about a half a mile, I'd say, of just straight road. You just leave your bike wide open, just tapped on fifth, and I mean, just clocking. And there's some sections that were super fun and flowy, and it was all sandy. But I mean, I'm pretty decent in sand, so you just lay your bike over in the corner, grab a handful of clutch, and just let her eat. It was a lot of fun, but I ended up getting taken out by well, I should say taken out by a lapper, but there's a lapper that knew that I was there, and I was like, hey,
Mhm.
letting them know that I was behind them, and like I'm not mad at them. I don't. Hopefully they're not watching this, but when they cut in front of me, they put
Mhm.
their foot down and they took my line, which I don't know why they dabbed. They didn't need to dab, but they
Mhm.
took my line, so I hit the back of their bike, and then they obviously were falling down, so they pushed me into the deep side of the puddle, and I didn't want to get stuck, so I left my bike wide open to get out of the puddle, and my bike ended up taking in some water, and that was all
Mm.
she wrote for me. So I went from first to last and last lap. So it's
Oh,
kind of
that's
a
hard. So,
shitty
when you
situation.
have Yeah, like when you have stuff like that happen, how do you deal with that mentally? Like, does it really get to you? Do you just like kind of like push through it and you're just like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna do better next time," or like walk us through that process a little bit? Because that's something that I've kind of always wondered.
So it's fuel to the fire. That's what I always try to use it as. But there are times like Millville, for instance, Mother's Day race. Like I said earlier, a lot of people don't see that backside of racing. What it takes to actually get to that level, like the sacrifices that it takes.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know if you listen to a lot of like David Goggins or anything, but
Mhm.
he always said like if you want to be good at something, you have to be obsessed to the point where people think you're crazy. And that's literally what moto is. Like you have to be
Mhm.
obsessed to the point that people think you're crazy and kind of stupid just to even race at a local level. because
Mhm.
all the races have gotten to such a point right now where everybody wants the same goal that you do. You just got to want
Mhm.
it more. You got to work harder. You got to outwork everybody else. So when those situations arise, and like for example, like I was saying at Millville, it was Mother's Day, so it was just kind of fuel to the fire. But my mom wanted me to do good, like she always wants me, and I wanted to win because obviously it's Mother's Day, and she does so much for me at my races. And I
Aw.
started out good. I was first for the first half of the race. I pitted.
Mhm.
I started to feel a little bit nauseous before my pit, I should say. I pulled into the pit, so we have one of those quick fill gas cans. I opened up my gas cap. I won't give away too much of my pit strategy, but I did all the things that I needed to do.
Mhm.
And I started to feel nauseous, so I ended up, throwing up on my mom's hand, and like I was just not not about that moment. So, but moments like that, like you just got to really lock in. Remember the
Mhm.
bigger goal. Remember, all these hundreds, literally thousands of miles you put on a bicycle for training, all the hours in the gym. Like you just got to
Yeah.
remind yourself of that bigger goal. And going back to like I was saying when I was a kid, like seeing those guys on the TV, holding that number 1 championship plate, like I never, ever, ever thought that I would win a championship, but I just kept
Mhm.
pushing and I won a championship. So it's like now I got that under my belt, like I want it again. But now
Yeah.
I'm in technically what's considered, an experts or like a amateur pro class or whatever you want to define it as. But now everybody is on the same level as me. They train just as much as me. They want it just as bad as me. They might be
Mhm.
my friend off the track, but they'll do whatever they can to get in front of me, on the track. And at the end of the race, like I had nothing left to give, and I
Mhm.
was so mentally defeated. Like I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried. Like I broke down. Like I was throwing up. Like I had grip lock. I mean, I trained and trained and trained, and I put everything I had into hopefully winning that race, and it just
Mhm.
wasn't enough. And it's like times like that, you feel like a failure because, like I said, you put everything into just that race. And
Mhm.
I averaged, a heart rate of 185 and I had a peak of 205. Like, I mean, it's not easy just sitting on a bike and twisting the throttle like everybody thinks. But I mean, it's
Yeah.
times like that you got to really lock down, really remind yourself of that bigger goal, and almost kind of use it as fire for the next race. So you come out swinging with a little bit added incentive. So that's what I'm carrying to Nevis, and hopefully I can put the hammer down and give her all I got.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'm really excited to hear how you do this weekend.
Thank
Kind
you.
of going back though, you talked about your injury. What what other things have you gone through or like had to overcome in your experience like in riding? Is there anything like that's really you felt like kind of hindered you like that injury or anything like that that you've really had to overcome and was like a sense of pride? I mean, obviously you're riding, you put a lot of work into that. I know how much you train on and off the bike. But is there anything else you've had to overcome kind of in that world just to get to the level that you're at?
Yeah, what they always say, you ride with faster riders, you'll end up being a faster rider.
Mhm.
But it's kind of almost discouraging sometimes because you get to the point where like I ride with a lot of AA riders who are literally the best riders in Minnesota. They consistently win, back-to-back championships and blah blah blah. But you ride with those guys and like you think you're doing good, and then they just blow by you, like just taking lines you didn't even see, and they just put you to shame. And like, it's really hard to get past that mentality of, oh my God, I suck. Like, I'm never going to get to their points. I'm never going to be as fast as them. But like, as soon as you have that mentality of, I can't, I can't, I can't, you won't. So
Yeah.
you got to put that mindset as soon as you say, I can, then
Mhm.
your mind opens up to it in completely different like viewpoints. And that's what I really struggled with, honestly, is saying I can't, I won't. I changed that and now I say I can. I show up to the races knowing that I put in the work. I know that I don't want to say faster, but I know that I'm fast. I know I can put up a good fight, and I know
Yeah.
I have that extra skill set in my tank. If somebody gets behind me, I can pull out things that my coach has taught me, and put up a good fight. So I think that's something that took me a long time. That was honestly a game changer, is just mindset. And I think every rider honestly kind of struggles with it. Um, Everybody wants to be the best they can be, and when they're not the best they can be, they get down on themselves. But the way to look at it is, what was that saying Thomas Edison found? He didn't fail like 1,000 times. He found 1,000 ways not to succeed, or something like that,
Yeah,
or
something like
something
that. Yeah.
along that lines. But
Yeah.
it's kind of the same concept. Like, just because you go down in a corner doesn't mean that you failed. It's just you found a way to not do it next time. So you get
You're
better
gonna
each
remember.
time. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all it is. You just go back out and don't make the same mistakes again. So you just stack success after success and keep her going.
That's really cool. I like that. You and I have had a lot of conversations about mindset over the last year or so, and I think that's really cool. Because I've watched you kind of go through that journey where, you were a little bit really hard on yourself. Like even a year ago, you were a lot harder on yourself than you are now.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to see. It's really like on my end, inspiring to see that you're, more confident and you're like pushing, you're hungry for it. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been hungry for it, I guess, but um, there's a lot of riders that say like you either have it in you or you don't. Like you got to have
Mhm,
that dog in you kind of thing. And I guess I I don't want to say I have the dog in me, but like I have that drive to get better. And
mhm,
I don't know, something clicked over training this winter, and I pretty much doubled my speed. I mean, these first well, 2 rounds so far,
mhm.
I've been running, upper 258 times, like top five 258 times, and towards the end of the races, I'm top five, top four 258 because I don't fade. Like I just keep pushing
Mhm,
and pushing and pushing, and like that's it's really humbling for me to see because when I won my championship in 2022, I was
yeah.
like, I don't know if I can get much faster. Like I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can. I was only racing an hour at that time. Now I'm doing that same intensity, but for another hour. And like I didn't think I could ever get to the point that I'm at right now. And like now I'm starting, what I'm working on is like learning how to carry more speed through sections that people are slowing down in.
Mhm,
So tight tree sections, a lot of people slow down,
mhm.
wheelie and turn your bars through it. Stupid, it's risky, but carry a lot of speed, save a lot of time. That's you slow down for half a second or a second. I just pulled a second on you right there. Boom, just like that. Do it
Yeah.
6, 7 times a lap. That's 7 seconds. You find a couple tenths of a second in each corner, each straight. Get on the gas a little bit harder, a little bit sooner, a little bit easier, earlier. It's just like I'm working on that, trying to find time and just perfecting like my technique and I guess my skills. So
That's awesome. So you've been working on your technique and skills. Um, so you've talked about your training. What does your training kind of look like on and off the bike? Like, if you don't mind sharing some of it, you don't have to go into detail about everything, but like, kind of what are your main focuses and like, who do you go to like when you need help like on the bike, I guess is what I'm asking too.
So, like, as far as fitness, you mean? Like, start with that,
Yeah.
or okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So fitness has actually been kind of a roller coaster. I've always been into fitness, but I never really knew what worked for my body.
Mhm.
Because before I say anything, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt, because my body is completely different than everybody else's body. So what works for me isn't
Yeah.
going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
However, when
I
I
love
first
that, by the way. Thank you for saying that because a lot of people are like, what I do works for everyone. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, no. So when I first started Anytime Fitness in Byron,
Mhm.
the guy who owns that gym, his name is Jameson. He trained Alex and Jeremy Martin. So I had
Oh,
mentioned that
cool.
I was into motocross, or dirt bikes, I should say. And he's like, "Oh, I trained Alex and Jeremy Martin their championship year." And I was like, "Oh, no way!" So I had asked him, I was like, "Hey, like, how much would you want if you kind of shared some tips and tricks, maybe some nutrition or whatever?" And he's like, yeah, I'll work out a deal with you. And we worked out a deal, and he helped me with fitness and nutrition. Like I was doing everything wrong. Like everything that I thought was, you know, motocross focused was not motocross focused. So he showed me a lot of like agility, um, not high weight exercises. So like not like strength training, because a lot of
Mhm.
motocross is agility focused. So you need to be light, you need to be strong, you need to have
Mhm.
good cardio. But you can train and train and train in the gym as much as you want. And if your nutrition and your diet doesn't back it up, you're not going to make any progress.
Yeah.
So that was my huge issue at first. I was putting in the work at the gym, doing a lot of cardio focused agility training, and
Mhm.
then didn't make any progress. Still getting gassed towards the end of the races, or like even towards the middle of the race. I'm not gonna lie, like I was way out of shape, and so I went back to him. I said, "Dude, like I don't know what's going on. Like I'm putting in all the work, I'm doing all the exercises that you tell me to, I'm putting all the hours on the bike that you're telling me to. It's not working." So we actually did lactic acid training thresholds basically. So
Mhm.
I sit on a bike. I reach certain VO2 maxes. They pulled blood work to see exactly how much lactic acid has built up in my body. Blah blah blah. So they take that blood work and then they say, okay, well, according to your blood work, you're a little lower in magnesium, iron, whatever the nutrient might be. Say, okay, you need more fish in your diet. You need
Yeah.
more protein or calcium, whatever it might be. So we found out what I was low in. And then,
Mhm.
so right now I basically do like a chicken and rice diet. It's not just chicken and rice, but it's like strictly low fat, high protein meals, quick in, quick out, but I eat a lot of it. So that's how
Mhm.
I get, a lot of calories, I guess, in my day because I'm a very active person. I train a lot, so I need a lot of food, a lot of fuel in my body. But as soon as I started really focusing on my nutrition, I paired it with the workouts that he was giving me. Game changer. Now I can charge, hour 40, hour 50, and I'm still feeling pretty good. Like obviously I'm tired, but not anywhere near as tired as I used to be.
Yeah.
Um, but a little free tip of advice for people is like race day, chicken and rice are your best friends because it's light, it's high in carbs, and it'll provide you with a lot of fuel. A lot of people
Mhm.
do like peanut butter and stuff like that, but that's really dense and really hard for your body. It sits in your stomach and it does its job, but it just sits in your stomach. It'll not really give you as much energy as quickly as chicken and rice would.
Mhm.
But I do that pre-race. It's really hard to like scarf it down because I don't know about you, but when I get nervous, I can't really eat that
Yeah.
much. But I'll have like as much as I can handle basically. But having food in your stomach before you race is very important. Not a lot, but enough to
Having something. You need to have
yeah,
fuel, and that's a big thing I've learned in the last year with all of my running and like trying to improve myself on the bike. Like it's the same thing. You have to have fuel because
yeah,
you just otherwise, if you don't have anything, like I used to be really big in fasted cardio, and I was just like, when I started eating and then going out for long runs, I realized I could run so much further, so much faster. I was like, whoa, this makes a big difference.
yep.
So
And that's
yeah, I
kind of where
totally get
like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt you.
I was done.
Okay. I was gonna say that's kind of like where supplements come in, where a lot of people get really confused about it, because they'll pull up to the line and they'll rely on their supplements to like
Mhm.
fuel them for the race, and it's like
Yeah.
if it works for you, that's awesome, but 90% of the time, that's not exactly how the human body works. Like you just can't have something high in maltodextrin and just assume that it's going to give you quick energy throughout the entire race. Like
Yeah.
because I take Rhino Power is one of my premier sponsors that have been with me for a little over 6 years.
Mhm.
But I use all of their supplements, but I use their monogels during my pits, and
Mhm.
it's a little bit of sugar and maltodextrin, and it basically gives me that little burst of energy and enough to carry me through that last half of the race when I pit. And like when I don't take it,
Mhm.
I can definitely feel it right away. Like if I miss my handoff or something like that, because I only want to be in my pit for roughly 15 seconds at the max. So
Jeez. Okay. Yeah.
if I'm in there any
That's
longer than
crazy.
that, I'm I'm losing time and I'm gonna not be very happy. So
That makes sense. But wow, that's crazy. Wow. Okay. Awesome. So that's a lot of information. It's good though. It's really good. I really like talking about like the fitness and the nutrition side of things because like I said, I've had this journey and you've watched me through it that that I've really learned a lot in the last year about
Oh,
just
you've been killing
how
it.
much nutrition, thank you. But the nutrition it does so much for you. So um that was really cool to you kind of like segued into what I wanted to ask anyway. Um so one of the other things that I wanted to ask is like do you have like you're riding a lot, you know, you're doing these races. How often do you get to ride just for fun? Like you started riding, you know, when you were young because you wanted to do it via like your dad. Do you just race now and train, or do you ever go out like on trail rides for fun?
So that's actually something that's been really getting to me lately. The
Mhm,
last like say 3 years, I've been taking my racing really seriously.
mhm,
Um, my best friend Zach just got a bike, and he's been doing the whole series with me this year.
mhm.
Um, but we, in the beginning of the year, we went out in my dad's, bean fields and just screwed around, roosting each other, like just jumping in and out of the ditches, like just made a little turn track, like just goofy things like that. And like I didn't realize it at the time. Like when I went home that night, I was like, why was that so much fun for me? Like I've never had that much fun on a bike in a very long time. And I got thinking, I'm like, that's what I grew up doing. Like that's
Yeah,
what dirt biking is. It might be sad to other people, but that's what I grew up on. Like that's what dirt biking was to me, is going out in my dad's fields, like just finding cool places to go and jump and experience, and just put a smile on my face. And I
yeah,
hadn't done that in years, like probably well over 10 years at that point, until I just did it with Zach. Like everything had been about getting faster.
mhm,
And right now, like I'm kind of getting, I don't want to say burnt out, but like I'm kind of getting towards my threshold where I'm like, I just want to throw my leg over a bike and have fun.
yeah,
Um, but I know you used to be in a road bike or like motorcycles for the streets, and
mhm,
one thing that really helped me is getting my adventure bike.
yeah,
So I can still do like dirt bike stuff, but I know it's not a dirt bike, so whatever I do on it has to be a little limited. So
yeah,
whenever I want to just go have fun, I'll just hop on my adventure bike. It's just a Teneri 700, but I mean, that's been a lot of fun for me. So when I get on my dirt bike, I'm like, I had my fun. Like this is fun, but there's a switch in my head when I put my, helmet on and I get on my dirt bike, like it's go time. It's time to learn, it's time to better myself. So I've been really trying to get out of the habit of doing that. So if I'm
mhm,
just riding with my friends, that's all it is. Like I can practice
yeah,
some stuff, like just a little bit of cornering, like just focus on a couple things, but just trying to focus on roosting each other, like just cutting each other's lines, like just going back and forth, like just being goofs. Like
that's fun.
that brings me back to like where I'm most grounded, and I think
Yeah.
that's been really helping me lately. So
That's really cool. You know, it's kind of funny. I've had a couple other friends who are like on a really high level who said similar things to me. So I don't know what's going on right now, but I really feel like finding that fun again and like remembering why you've trained so hard, why you've done this. Like it's really cool to win and everything, which I mean, I've never done it, so you know, that I think it would be really cool. Um, but I think remembering why you started in the first place, remembering that fun is really important. Like we talked about mindset, I think it really helps you kind of keep things in perspective.
yep, it keeps you
So
grounded. It gives you
yeah,
something to kind of remember why you do it.
yeah,
And I think lately the years I've been kind of forgetting why I do it. My reason why I've been doing it has been shifted towards, I want that piece of plastic. Like I want to get points. I want to win. I want to impress my sponsors. Like I have a couple contracts that, if I don't get so many points, like I get dropped, and like it's not
mhm,
the end of the world, but at the same time, like it's a terrible comparison, but it's like raising a kid. You see it, you put so much time and energy and effort into raising that kid, and then like what happens if the kid just doesn't want anything to do with you? They just up and leave or something, or you lose
mhm,
that child or kid or whatever. And like, there's a hole in your heart now. There's a hole in who you are as a person. And that's kind of
mhm,
what I feel like was happening to me before I started finding like being really grounded again with why I
Mhm.
like dirt bikes, because I was just burning myself out and I felt empty. Like I'm not succeeding doing anything. So it was huge for me to get regrounded and find or remind myself why I do it other than just chasing plastic and points and, my sponsors, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like I was saying, I kind of went in a circle, but I spent, 25 years of my life getting to this point. Why not try to go as far as I can with it? Why not try to push myself as hard as I can and like see where I can go with it? Because when I was a kid, I didn't think I was going to be where I am. So I got to be appreciative of how far I've came. I'm appreciative of the people that I have in my life and who help me train and stuff like that. And I think it's just, I don't know, it's just, it's something that I've always wanted. So like, I'm just trying to kind of run with it, I guess. So
No, I think it's really important. I think they can kind of feed into each other. Like you said, it keeps you grounded. And it's really cool to have seen you since Zach started riding with you. Um, I feel like you've been posting stuff that you're having more fun. You're laughing a lot more in your videos. And it was really cool to see you like doing motos and stuff before. You would send me videos of that, and I thought that was so cool because I wasn't training. I was like, this is awesome. Um, but it is nice to see kind of a balance now of you having fun and being able to train and I
yeah,
think that's really important. Like you said, people get so burnt out just training all the time, whether it's on and off the bike. You do a lot of stuff, which is fantastic, but you still gotta have fun. You still gotta have a
yeah.
life, you know,
I,
and I think that's
sometimes, oh, sorry.
good for you. I was just
Yeah.
saying it. I just think it's really good for you.
Yeah,
I feel like you've kind of become more well-rounded, especially in the last year. Kind of watching you and seeing how, everything's progressed for you. So I'm
yeah.
really excited to see how this weekend goes.
I'm sure you'll find out on my social media. I'll just send you a message or whatever. But
Yes.
I was gonna say a good point. Like I always tell people, like there's a difference between riding and
Mhm.
racing, because
Yeah.
they're two completely separate things. Because I've had a lot of friends that have like they get it kind of confused, like, oh, I ride dirt bikes, like I can race, like that's fine. It's like I'm sure you can. Like anybody and everybody in the entire world can line up and race a race. Like it's not
Mhm.
that's not the hard part, but
Yeah.
the hard part is pushing yourself with the mentality of I'm gonna win and I'm gonna do good and bettering yourself and overcoming those obstacles of failure and stuff like that and dealing with 40, 50, 60 other guys. And there's a big difference between it. Some people just don't understand why I have to train so much for racing. It's like, oh, you should ride a dirt bike. Like if I was riding, yeah, like I wouldn't have to train. I'd just go ride. That's why they
Yeah.
call it riding.
Yeah. I completely get that. Like I don't know, it's just something about it makes it really different. Like you were talking about having that hunger, you know, and I think that kind of separates it. Like when I go do a race, I do it for the experience. Like I
Yeah,
do it because I never had that growing up. Like I don't think I'm gonna win, but I also don't want to be in the last place either. Like
yeah,
so my first enduro that I did, I houred out. And then my second race ended up being a hare scramble. But I wasn't last, and I was super excited by that. So, like, every time that I go and I do that, I'm not gonna get first because 'cause I'm not training like that, like, I'm not training like you, but I wanna do better than I did the last time. So,
yeah.
I have,
I was,
like, the baby version of that.
I was gonna say, but I want to ask you a question. But every time you went out, did you get better? Did you learn something?
Oh, yeah, for sure. In
Exactly.
Arizona, I did that hair scramble in Arizona. I
That's
learned
all.
that I can do things on the bike that I had no idea I could do because we had to come out of a wash and it was like coming up the side and the dude lapped me and I watched him go up and over and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna hit the wall and just die. And I don't know what I did. I could not tell you, but I made it up and over, and that was the coolest thing that I've ever done, and nobody got it on camera. So,
Isn't it funny how that always happens? Like nobody just gets
oh, it's
anything on camera.
terrible. Yeah, but I was falling at a really stupid sandy spot because I'm not good in sand, and they caught that on camera. So I'm just like, but
Yeah,
but
sand
not
is
the cool thing.
sand's a little goofy because it's I always so Hunter Lawrence actually said something that kind of stuck with me. In Daytona they had Daytona they had a sand section and he was in the background talking to somebody and I could kind of like hear it. He's like, "Hey, you just got to keep drive going." I was like, I got thinking about it. It's like it kind of makes sense because if you have drive going, even if it's like 2-3% power to your rear wheel and it's just not sitting neutral and it's not
Mhm.
dragging, you're going to be going through sand so much easier because you're going to have consistent drive. So your front wheel's not going to be diving. It's like ever since I heard him say that, sand's been so much easier. So you can I don't know what I was trying to say there, but manipulate your speed and your traction with your clutch. So you can be, you know, 20, 30, 40% throttle and just kind of control it with your clutch. So you always have drive because there's always going to be drag on the clutch. So that's all the drive that you need. I mean, yeah, it's hard on your clutch, but I mean, it's a race. So luckily, I have some people that help me out with clutches, so I'm a little hard on them, but
They're all right with that.
yeah, they're all right with that as long as I'm doing good. So I haven't had a worse finish other than third this year. So, well, I guess my first round, which is 12th, but
We're
I
not
don't
gonna
really
count
count
that.
that. Yeah, I don't really count that. So we'll see how I do in
Cool.
Nevis, but I'll put my head down
Cool.
and do the best I can. So
So with you riding with Zach, like, and just having fun, and like, would you guys? And I don't know if you guys have talked about this at all, but would you guys like go anywhere else, like outside of Minnesota, to go ride together? Like, would you guys like go on like some cool trail ride? Like, where would you want to go if you could?
yeah, so we actually talk about that all the time. One of
Oh,
our
cool.
things we want to do is he wants to get an adventure bike too. So we want to go
Mhm.
out to South Dakota and ride those trails to see like the back
Yeah.
roads to like Mount Rushmore and stuff like that. But as far as dirt bikes go, I really want to bring them down to Oklahoma, like Appalachian Bay, Jade Bears, Stillwater 500, like
Mhm.
those places. I
Yeah.
think he'd get a huge kick out of that. And um, to be honest, like when he first got a dirt bike, he's like, dude, I suck. Like I can't do nothing. Like he had a hard time even kicking his bike like without tipping over. Like I'm not trying to knock on him, but like the dude's got
Yeah.
heart, and I really, I have admired that about him. Um, but to see firsthand his progress from last year to the beginning of last year to the end of last year, compared
Yeah.
to when we started riding this year until now, like even after the two races that we've done, like
Mhm.
he's so hard on himself. He doesn't think that he's doing a good job, but he's not tipping over anywhere near as much. He has drive from corner to corner. He's working on body positioning. He doesn't look like a fucking spode on his bike anymore. Like he still looks like a C class guy. Like it is what it is, but his, his ability and his drive to get better and push himself to be the best that he can be to like, compete with me, I guess
Yeah.
it's really like kind of humbling to watch him listen to what I've been taught and apply it. It's like
Yeah.
that's really cool for me to see. And if I would have mentioned going to Oklahoma last year, he would have, no, I can't do that. Like I'll die, like this and that, blah blah blah. But now he's like, yeah, dude, let's go. Like that'll be fun. Like that'll be cool to see. And like just hearing that mentality change is really
Yeah.
like rewarding for me, I guess. Like not saying I'm a coach or anything, but like as a
Yeah.
friend, like, that's really cool for me
No,
to see.
I get it though. Like I've been there when my friends have learned stuff, and like it's so cool because like you just watch the light bulb and you like see them do it and you just get this sense of pride and you're just like that's the coolest thing ever. Like even like well in your case you're kind of doing more teaching, you're kind of helping him. I mine was more of a, off to the side thing, but it's still like I understand it is really cool and you're just like you're so stoked for them when they get it finally and you're just like yes, you can do it and that's
Yep.
awesome.
I was like
So
kind of like a proud parent when he hooks a rut and he gets through it with some speed. I'm like, yes! Like,
yeah.
I'm so excited.
He's like your
Wow.
little moto kid now.
Yeah, kind of. He's kind of like a little child for me. Every time we go to the
That's
track, you got
awesome.
your gas, you got your helmet. Like, okay, you went in the corner a little bit goofy. Try this line here.
I can't wait to get back to Minnesota. I want to ride with you guys because, like, I don't know Zach. Like, I just know him through your social media content. Like, that's
He's a
it.
good kid.
But
He's a
from
good
like
kid.
you said, I've watched since you've been posting since he started with you last year to now. I mean, he's progressed a lot. So
Oh yeah,
that's really cool. And that's just like I said, the snippets that I've seen, and I can see it from that. So
yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you could go anywhere in the world, like, is there anywhere outside of the United States that you would want to go? Because, like, I ask this question to a lot of people, and like 90% of people say Costa Rica. So you can't say Costa Rica, you have to say anywhere else.
Um, so not that I could finish it, but I thought it'd be a really cool experience to go like ride the Ayresburg course. I don't think that I would finish it, but I would give it a try. I don't think I'd make it through Carl's dinner, but there are certain sections of that that look like a lot of fun to ride.
Yeah,
But just the scenery and like, you know, that whole like area just looks really cool.
it's
Um,
epic. It is
the,
so epic.
oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. The other one, you'll probably know where it is. I don't. I just watch it. But Red Bull Sea to Sky. I'm not sure where that is.
That's in Turkey.
Is it in Turkey? Okay.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
know
Oh
right
my
away.
God. Oh my God. Yes. Okay, cool. So we can plan our trips together because those are places that I want to go to because
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just, again, it's just absolutely epic.
I always see videos of like the hard enduro guys like going through it. I'm like, it's just so much fun. Like, not that
Yeah.
I can like probably do it as well as they do, but like it'd still be fun to like experience the course. Just because,
Yeah.
like, even locally, like my first time on Spring Creek, I was
Mhm.
like, oh my god, like you get a whole new level of respect for like what the pros do because those jump faces are like the bars are right in your chest. So, like you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
this is deep. I
It's
think it'd be
crazy.
cool.
Like, yeah, that is, oh God, I'm so excited that you said Erzberg. And Sea to Sky is not one that a lot of people well, at least that I know watch. Because I was watching it this last year and everybody's like, what are you watching? Like, I don't even know this race. Because like everybody knows Erzberg and Romaniacs, and those are like the two big ones that people always know.
Yep.
Um, but Sea to Sky is really cool. I think that one's just beautiful.
Oh
But
yeah.
Erzberg is definitely epic. Erzberg was the first thing I ever saw of hard enduro,
Oh
and
really?
yeah, it was before I was riding even. It was, like, probably 3 or 4 years before I got a bike, and I was like, "I'm gonna go there one day." Like, I wanna be there, I wanna be around that, like, that would be so cool. I had this dream that I was just, like, gonna go and be able to ride it, and then I got my little TTR, and I was just like, "I'm gonna do it
Scary.
one day," and yeah. So maybe one day I'll be able to go and do it. Like you said, just for the experience. That'd be
Yeah.
so cool. But I
Yeah.
gotta make it through a hard enduro here first. So
Yeah. I've
that's next.
had I've kind of had like a little goal. I don't think financially it'll ever happen because I'm like every other American. I need a job to pay for my mortgage, but I would like to do the whole GNCC circuit. But
That'd
I
be
just
cool.
some of them are so far away, just like I can't justify taking an entire week off of work, 2 3 weeks in a row. So it's like not really something that I can justify doing, but I definitely do want to do a couple GNCCs. I'm planning on doing Ironman at the end of the year in Crossroads Cross. Oh my God, I can't pronounce it. It's in Indiana, but it's like
Okay.
the biggest one of the GNCC circuit. I think last year there was like 1,500 oh, there's probably more than 1,500 spectators, but I think there was like 1,000 riders or something like that. Like it was big turnout. So I think that'd be
Wow.
cool to be a part of.
Yeah, that's incredible. That would be really cool. I would totally go for that. I would I would come and watch.
You watch me suffer for 3 hours.
Dude, I just went to a hard enduro a couple weeks ago. What do you think I was doing there?
That's fair point. Yeah. GNCC is so
No.
gnarly though. Like you see those guys get
Yeah.
done with the races, and like I can't fathom the speed of the pros. Like I know, like the people that I hang around. So it's like I kind of hear a little bit of that inside world, and
Yeah.
they go through like clutches and motors every race, like they're on the pipe all the time, and like just
Yeah.
hearing them go through the woods, like watching them on the videos, like wow, I sound old. Watching them on video doesn't really do it justice, like how fast and gnarly those guys are, and just how
Yeah.
hot those bikes get. Like it's a gnarly world, the GNCC. Like it takes a different type of breed to do those.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I've found in the last 2 years being more exposed to like different disciplines of dirt bikes and stuff like that. It's been crazy to see
Yeah,
the level of riding. Like, I mean, I knew it existed because obviously I watched like Erzberg and stuff, but
yeah,
like seeing it in person is something completely different because when I was at the Hard Enduro in North Carolina, I was trying to take a picture and Tristan Hart went so fast by me that he's just a blur in the picture. And I was like, what?
shit.
Like, even I was taking video and picture at the same time. And even in the video, he's a blur. And I was like, I don't like, I could not move fast enough. So I had to figure out a different angle. And like, I was able to get a picture the next time he went around. But it was still, I was like, it is ridiculous some of the stuff that those people do. Like all
Oh
of
yeah,
the pros in all those disciplines are just, it is insane. And
like
but it's really cool and I'm absolutely ridiculous and I'm like, I could do that. I'm like in like 5 years, but I could do that. Like,
eventually, it's that mindset we're talking about. I can, I can, I
yeah,
can. You'll get there.
yeah.
It takes
So
time.
like, yeah, then when I go out the next time I'm riding, I'm like, okay, this is difficult for me now, but in like a month, this isn't going to be difficult because I'm going to sit here and I'm going to project this and I'm going to like, I had this rock hill that I found here in Maine and I was just like, I'm just going to do this until I can get it right. Well, I got it right first time and I was like, okay, that's probably luck. So I did it like 6 or 7 times and I was like, okay, I actually kind of know what I'm doing. So, um, that's been kind of cool for me. So I have like I said, I'm like the baby version of what you have. Like you have like this crazy incredible drive. Like mine's down here. But
No,
mine
you
was
just take a
always like
video.
way, way, way down there. So like the fact that it's here now, it's like that's a lot for me. So I'm still working on progressing and
Yeah.
everything. But
Well, I mean, you got to remember everybody's, has a different upbringing. Everybody has a different progression,
oh yeah.
than the next person. It's like you probably weren't exposed to the same things that I were. So it's like if you were, I'd be in your shoes and you'd be in my shoes. It's
Yeah. Well,
everybody
yeah, and
takes,
that's the thing. I've only been on bikes for a few years, so,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's not I didn't grow up on bikes. Like even bicycles. Like I didn't grow up riding a bicycle.
Really?
Like yeah, I didn't ride a bicycle until I was probably 16.
Oh, wow. I
So,
didn't know that.
yeah, I just didn't that wasn't really a thing for us. So, like my
Totally get
whole like people are like, "Well, when you're on a bike and like you're balanced." I'm like, "No."
it.
Like I
Not
am
dude, I don't.
straight at zero here. Like you gotta build me from nothing. Like
They just bring you to a
so
hill and push you down the hill and say, "Good luck, figure it out."
that's kind of what my first experience on a bicycle was like.
That's kind of how my dad taught me. He just basically brought
Yeah.
me to the top of the hill behind our house, and it was well, my TTR 90 was a foot clutch. It was automatic, so it was just up, up,
Mhm.
up, and it was a reciprocating trans. So once you went
Yeah.
into fifth and you got down to the low, slow enough speed, you pull up and you go back into first, just because like kids don't really understand the up, up, up,
Yeah.
down to down thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, he brought me to the top of the hill. He said, "Put your feet on the pegs, put the hands on the bars. It's just like riding your bike. I'm just gonna push you." And he pushed me, and I went like 3 feet, and fell down. Like, so he kept doing it over
I
and
have
over and
you
over.
beat. I think I went like 7 feet my first time on a bike.
See,
So, and that
you're
was
a pro.
that was in Waterloo in the sand. So,
Oh, what? Oh, that OHB park.
yeah, yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't.
Yeah, you know how sandy it is.
I haven't been there in almost. Nope, I lied. 3 years, I think, was the last time I went there with Logan. So
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
went there I went there 2 years ago. I didn't get back
Okay.
last summer, but
Okay.
when I went, half of it was underwater. So
I was gonna say, I think they change a lot of it. I think the like three main tracks or whatever stay pretty consistent, but I think they like
yeah.
make new trails and stuff every once in a while. So
Yep. Yeah, well, because they have to, because the river like floods up every year,
yeah.
but it doesn't get high enough to where the tracks are. So the tracks are fine, but the trails that are all on the bottom, like a lot of the yeah, a lot of the single track, thankfully though, is higher, so that's nice
Okay.
usually. But I have a soft spot for Waterloo because I mean I that's the place that I learned to ride. And I really always had fun. Like whenever we would get a whole group to go, like it was cool because people like Ethan and Aaron could go and they could ride at their pace, and I could be there riding the same kinds of trails, but like
Yeah.
doing my thing and my little putt putt while they're off like going absolutely
Blazing.
ridiculously fast.
Yeah.
And then like it was just really cool. And then like people brought their kids, and it was really cool to just kind of have every level be able to find something. Whereas
Yeah.
like we went to Snake Creek one time and it was the worst experience of my life because it was only my second time on a bike. And so I
Oh,
didn't really like I hadn't really figured out the clutch and stuff yet. And Ethan was like, it's so easy. Like, it'll be fine.
but
And
it's not.
yeah, you know that big hill you have to go up in the beginning, and it's not exactly flat. It's pretty rocky. And they hadn't told me like what to do. Like, I didn't know anything about body position, and I kind of almost went off the cliff, and it was a terrible, terrible time.
What a
So,
great first experience. Well,
yeah.
second.
And then after that, anytime Ethan was like, "Oh, it's easy," I was like, "No, you're not allowed to talk."
I haven't ridden with Ethan and those guys for a long time. That's kind of another thing that I was thinking about is like he's actually one of the ones that exposed me to like hair scrambles. I didn't even know what they were. And he's like, dude, come
Oh,
race
really?
this race at Millville. And I was like, dude, I don't want to do track. And he's like, no, it's a hair scramble. Or not Millville, Meadow Valley. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. He's like, oh, just come out. It's just like a track day. I was like, okay. So I show up
Yeah.
and we did this hour-long race, and I raced X class because it was my first hair scramble ever. And I was
Mhm.
like, it was a lot of fun, but it was also that time that it was 113 degrees. So like everybody was pulling off, and I just, stuck it out or whatever because that's who I am. But I remember
Yeah.
watching Ethan because he was racing 250C, and I'm like, dude, like you're so fast, like oh my god, like now
Yeah.
he's racing B or whatever. But like I never thought I'd like be faster than those guys, but
Yeah.
somewhere along the lines, I just got like way faster, and it's like I feel really bad because I haven't ridden with those guys because like I ride with double A guys to like get myself faster, and like now I'm pulling like 2-3 minutes a lap on Ethan and those guys, and it's like I never thought I'd do that.
Yeah. It's
But
cool though. Like, I mean, it's you've had a little bit of a different journey. And that's actually something that's really cool to touch on is like, you've been super focused on bikes, and Ethan has a family that he
yeah,
focuses more on now because before their son came, he was riding a lot more.
yep,
Um and so that definitely changes things. But you did touch earlier on the fact that you have a job. You have a job that you have to work. You're not fully sponsored to the point where you get to just go to everything all the time. Um, how hard is it to fit training and like everything into your day? Because like, I mean, I know you, but for everybody else that's listening.
yeah. So I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with who take racing seriously is trying to find time to train. You always hear people saying, "Oh, I can't race because I work," or "I just can't justify it because I work anymore." It's like I'm not ready to give up on my racing, and I want to devote as much time to it because that's what makes me who I am. That's where I get my motivation. That's where I get my mentality from. That's where I get my drive from. Keeps me healthy. But trying to find a job that balanced my training and racing and worked with my racing. If I want to take a Monday off or if I got to travel, taking whatever day off was really hard. Um, so I actually job hopped for a little bit because I worked at Endress as a window cleaner, like super cool, I know. But they worked with me whenever and however many days I needed, like at a
Yeah.
moment's notice. And that was really nice for me. And I think that's one of the reasons that I got a lot faster is because I could dedicate a lot of time to it.
Hmm.
And then I started running into money issues, so I ended up going to work at the Cook as a pipe layer and equipment operator. And obviously, I was working 14, 15-hour days, like doing emergency water main breaks, and I was putting in 30 hours and like stints straight. Um, and I started to find myself getting more serious with racing, but not devoting as much time to it. So
Hmm.
I started getting hurt a lot. I broke my ribs at Crosby. I mean, I hurt my wrist. I got a concussion that year.
Hmm.
I just it I didn't have enough time to dedicate to racing to race the pace that I was. Um,
Yeah.
so I ended up looking for a different job. Found a job that worked with me a little more on racing. Um, got a little bit faster, and then that job just kind of shot itself in the foot, on their side, and then basically shut the branch down. So I found a different job, and now I'm working with I probably shouldn't say where I work, but I work for the city somewhere, and um,
Yeah.
they're really good at working with me for racing. So um, now I have set hours, so I get off at 3 every day, and I can go straight to my parents' house, ride my track, practice whatever I need to practice. I can do all my diet stuff, and that's been huge for me is finding a job that was excuse me, able for me to still devote myself to racing, but still have a successful career and be able to fund my racing. So
It's hard. Dirt bikes are
yeah,
expensive. Like
very
I
cool,
I learned
definitely.
that real quick. Well, with this one that I got, it's not like that's a cheap bike, but um yeah, it's a lot of fun to have to pay for all of that.
Yeah, you need a job to pay for all the cool trick parts, but I'm starting to get to the point right now where I'm maxing out my suspension, even though it's been revalved and resprung and everything for me.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna bring it to fine tune suspension. Clayton does a really good job, with me and my
Mhm.
suspension and how he interacts with me and the community and stuff. I really appreciate everything that he does. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go talk to him about getting his Raven kit. It's basically a kit suspension, so my coach has it on his bike, and I really loved it when I rode his bike. And I think just his because I went from a 254 stroke to a 300 Riehu two stroke and knew nothing about it. I had never ridden it. I haven't ridden a two stroke in 5 years. Not comfortable on it at all. It's set up for him, not me. And he let me drive it or ride it, I should say. And just the way that the suspension soaked everything up and how planted the bike was, I'm just like, dude, I'm sold on the suspension. Like it is
Mhm.
ungodly smooth. And I'm like, I know for a fact I'd be a lot faster rider with that kit. So now I have a successful job. So I'm gonna save up a little bit of money and go buy that Raven kit. So hopefully Clayton will do a bit of a deal, but we'll see.
That's great. That's a suspension makes a big difference, as I
Yeah.
found
Huge.
recently. So,
Huge.
well, that's really cool. I'm, again, really excited to hear how things go this weekend. We'll have to figure out how to get you out to all those GNCC races next year, because,
Yeah.
like, we'll have to get you like a second bike and have somebody who travels a lot just like take your bike for you places.
You're pointing at yourself, yeah, hinting at something. Sponsored by Angel.
Dude, if I had that kind of money right now, oh my God, that'd be incredible.
I think a
Um,
lot of people wish they could sponsor people. That's kind of a
yeah,
cool thing for me too, because I never thought that I'd have sponsors, and like now I get free product through. Well, not totally free, but I get pretty heavily discounted Rhino Power products, and
yeah,
Havoc and O'Neill, and I mean, I never thought I'd be here. So it's like I've said back to I'm already here. Why not keep going with it? So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, in our last couple minutes, is there anybody that you want to like thank, you want to shout out, anything you want to do is just shameless plug time. So,
shameless plug time. Well, I'm not really one to shameless plug, but my parents, I mean, a lot of people, they baseball, basketball, stuff like that, like bring your family, whatever, but it's not like motocross is because a lot of people don't see the family atmosphere that is racing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's families that bring their campers and their cousins and their uncles and their aunts and like their entire family come out because you can camp, you set up your little pit area and like it's just
Mhm.
a huge family. So anyways, sorry, get
No,
sidetracked, but
this is your time to talk.
my parents have been huge, huge, huge for me, and they've always supported me. And like they come to all my races. They pit for me at every one of my races. I mean, my mom lifts me up when I'm, being a little crybaby, and like, I mean, they give me little pep talks, and just I can't thank my parents enough. And like, especially even now this year, Zach, like him coming to races too. I mean, that's huge for me. I know I haven't even really told him this, but like having my best friend be there at races like helps my mentality of I'm not alone in this. I'm not suffering alone. Like even though we do two completely different paces, but it's
Yeah,
really comforting to know that like the one dude that I confide in this world is there, whether because he's been with me through thick and thin. Like I owe my life to that kid, and it's really nice to know that he's there to support me just as much as I'm there to support him. So I like to
yeah.
thank him too. So
Oh, that's awesome. See, I
obviously,
really want to meet this guy. This guy sounds awesome.
he's a cool dude.
Well, cool. Well, then I think that's it. You survived your first podcast.
I did. I feel
You,
like a
you
celebrity now being interviewed.
did. How do you feel? You feel all right? Okay.
I had a lot of fun doing this. I didn't think nothing against you, but I'm like I don't think
Yeah.
I'd ever enjoy being on a podcast. Like I'm not much of a talker, but like it's a lot easier to talk to somebody that I've been with, in my life to around these things and have talked to. So it's like talking to more like talking to a friend. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because I just looked at the time and we said we were going to shoot for 30 minutes because, like, you were nervous and I just wasn't sure if you were going to make it, and we made it to a full hour. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, it was easy. Yeah, come back for a
Awesome.
second episode sometime. So
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, that's kind of something that I actually want to do is, because obviously, like, I'm talking to people who aren't the top pro people. But my hope is that people like you are going to move up and, you're going to get to different positions and, that we'll be able to like go back and kind of full circle it and just be like, kind of update, especially like
yeah,
talking about mindset and stuff like that. I think that's something that evolves as you get to a different
all right.
level and you have to really keep working on it, to really kind of keep like you keep talking about being grounded, not being burnt out. That's
Yeah,
stuff that like as you get to a higher level, I think it's harder to kind of find that balance, but it's it's really cool to get like a glimpse into that from the people that I know. The things that they share. It's cool for me being at my level to see that like, hey, they still struggle with this. And it's cool to like get a glimpse into how they get through those things.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's my coach always says you're only as good as your last race. So it's always it's always kind of fun to, just push yourself to be better each time. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I really like about dirt bikes that you don't really find anywhere else because we don't have a team to rely on. We don't have, I mean, our pit crew, but I mean, they're not out there racing our bike with us.
yeah.
It's always something you can do to better yourself for the next race. And that process will never be done. You will always try to better yourself and be better for the next time. And it's kind of chasing the tail of the dragon. And that's something that, I always want to better myself and
Mhm.
just be the best I can be. Dirt bikes allow me to do that.
That's that's great. I love it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.